Whether you're a seasoned vet of the payments industry or a brand new rookie who just heard the term dual pricing for the first time, you're in the right place. This is the only podcast that shares the strategies and stories behind selling merchant services, all from the perspective of those on the front lines. Welcome to Agent First. Hello and welcome to our very first episode of a yet-to-be-named podcast. It might be named by the time this comes out, or we may name it after it comes out. I'm not sure. But I'm John Skelly. He's Justin Volrath. We're here to talk about, it's even hard to know kind of what to call it because there's so many different names. We could call it merchant services or payments or...
FinTech.
What do you even tell people when you tell people the industry that you're in?
I tell them I'm in the payments industry. I say, there are many different ways to move money, and we help move money from one place to another.
It doesn't fit on a business card well.
Definitely not, but it's a quick way. People are like, oh, okay. And they get a general idea of what you do.
So whatever you call the industry, we're both part of it, and this podcast really is just to kind of take a real-life look at the industry itself, but more specifically kind of what it means to sell in that industry, right?
Right.
And so I thought, what better way to do that than to kind of tell your story, just so that it's clear. I mean, I'm a nobody in it, but I'm sitting next to someone that has a decades-long history in the industry. Yep. And so that's kind of what I was hoping we would do in this first episode, is just walk me through kind of how you got into payments and some of the adventures, some of the challenges that you've experienced, and kind of where that's brought you to today, because I think that'll help serve as context for all the rest of the conversations we're planning to have.
Absolutely. Love it.
So I know you grew up in a sales family, right? So sales wasn't new to you by any means. Yeah. But it wasn't payments. Tell me a little bit about kind of the sales that you grew up with.
Right. So I grew up in the plumbing and septic business, sure, which you don't really equate that with sales by any means.
Some people might.
Some people do.
Yes.
We refer to ourselves as number one and the number two business. So we have that going for us. But my grandfather was a plumber. My dad was a master plumber. Matter of fact, my dad was the youngest ever master plumber in Iowa. Okay. And so I grew up always being around it. So from the time I could hold a shovel, the dumb end of the shovel, as we called it, I was doing that. But what you learned really quickly, being around the family, was that this just doing what you said you were going to do, the consultative sales approach and showing up. My dad used to always say, like, 95% of my business is because I show up when I say I'm going to.
Sure.
So you learn this thought of, like, we're selling, but you're not really having to sell if you just do what you say you're going to do. And so over years, that turned into we started using some very unique products. We started selling those unique products all over the Midwest, and that became then more of a formal sales role by the time I was in my early 20s. Rewind a little bit. I went to college for a semester because, no business. I was not going to go in the family business. I had no interest in that whatsoever, of course. Sure. And then you go for a semester and you realize, like, wow, this is a lot better over here. And, and so jumped in, ran with the family business for quite a while. We started selling all over the Midwest, traveling all over, selling products all over. So it was a family business, me and my dad and my mom and my sister and a couple other people. And then over time, what ended up happening is family's growing. My kids are getting older, not loving the travel as much, that sort of thing. And so we got rid of that business and then decided to, what's next? I had already had some interest in real estate.
Yeah.
So I decided to go down that path into real estate. Had a very successful career for 3 years in real estate. My dad actually stumbled into the merchant services industry.
Yeah.
And for, it's really, there's a lot of funny stories around that, but there's, for 3 years, he was doing, merchant services working for Heartland Payment Systems. And I was trying to talk him out of it for 3 years. Tell him, like, there's no way this is true. There's no way it's as good as you're telling me it is. Come over, like, real estate's where it's at. Yeah. And then 3 years later, we start comparing paychecks, realizing, hey, we're making about the same amount of money, and I'm working way harder than you are, and I'm working nights and weekends.
Sure.
And really, there was this final moment, this kind of defining moment for me when I said, like, okay, I've got to make a change. And it was my oldest son, Justin Jr., which we were named we refer to him as Junior. Junior was a baseball player, and he really wanted to play catcher. And the one game where he finally got to be catcher, I wasn't there because as a realtor, you're always showing houses nights and weekends, right? So I'm not able to be there for all the games. So the one game where he got to be catcher finally, he came home all excited. I wasn't there, a little bummed out. And he said to me, he's like, "It's okay, Dad. One of the other dads was there to put the gear on me." And I was like, okay, that was,
Sure.
knife in the heart. And that was when I realized, like, okay, I've got to make a change. And that's when I decided, check out this crazy industry.
It's funny. I think that matters, right? Because I'm a dad too,
Yeah.
and so I certainly have made career choices and changes based on that. And it always sounds like something that may not resonate with people, but I think it really does. I think for a lot of us, that's where we end up.
Absolutely.
I've heard your dad talk about that some of the ribbing that he would give you in that 3-year span where you would talk about selling a house and he would ask you how much that house was going to make you next month.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Or he'd call me on weekends and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm at an open house, Dad. Where every Sunday from 1 to 4, you were at an open house trying to gain more clients or sell that house." And he'd say, "Oh, that's right. I'm hanging out with your kids like you should be." And those things are things, of course.
Yeah, it's great. And at some point we'll have your dad on the podcast because he's a whole character in and of himself.
For
so,
sure, yeah.
So he found payments, right? Payments industry, selling payments, convinced you to come join.
Right.
What did that kind of look like? What were the early days in merchant sales for you?
It was rough in the beginning, for sure. Most people that know me now wouldn't think this, but at the time, I really struggled with paralysis by analysis. I really did. And I tend to be, kind of a shoot from the hip guy now, but I always prided myself on being the guy with all the answers. It was my badge of honor to speak. And when I was growing up in the septic world, because all my years of experience, I had the answers. When I went into real estate, I very quickly rose up and become one of the top producers at not just in our office, but in the whole country for our company. And kind of was the guy that came to with answers. I helped with career nights. I did all these things. And so when I started payments, it was like, I don't know what I'm doing, and if you've ever started with most payments companies, it's kind of like, hey, here you go talk to some people, and we'll figure it out, right? And I was expecting this, book and this training and every scenario and what happens and steps, and it's not like that. It's not that clean sales process, right?
Sure.
So for the first 6 months, I really struggled, and I can remember very clearly. My dad had a meteoric rise, his first 6 months in the company, and I remember, I was about 4 or 5 months into it. I sold a handful of deals, and I remember at the time. I didn't report directly to my dad because they didn't want that, nepotism there. I reported to another guy, and our vice president at the time, we were having lunch, and he said to me, "Man, I just guess I was really wrong on this. I thought you were going to be like your dad." And I remember being like, "Oh, all right, I got it." So what it was for me is I just had to get over the concept of being worried of all the what ifs. And once I decided, hey, I know more than they know, and we'll figure it out, and just be honest with people and tell them, hey, I don't know, but I'll go figure it out and come back to you with the right answer. Once I started realizing, all business owners aren't gonna, bite you. I took off and had a great start to my career then. It was just delayed by about 6 months.
Sure. Was there? Do you remember maybe a specific deal that it kind of everything you knew how to overcome the objections, you knew how to answer the questions, and it just kind of fell into place the way that you would have hoped that they all would from then forward?
Yeah. There's a specific deal. I can tell you exactly. I don't know if I should say it, but it's Cyclone Liquors in Ames, Iowa, where it should not have gone as smooth as it was. I mean, there's a point of sale involved, which should have been much more difficult to integrate with. There was long-term ownership involved, and then a general manager didn't always agree. But I stuck with what we called the playbook at the time and worked through the objections and got the deal closed very quickly. And it was the turning point for me of, oh wow, I can do this. I really can do this. And then just started replicating that from there.
So obviously you had done business to business sales, right?
Right,
with,
right.
with what you grew up with. But the pay is a little bit different.
Absolutely.
When you talk about, kind of the, what you get when you sign the deal, and then obviously residuals. I think
Right.
that's what brings a lot of people to merchant sales
Absolutely.
is the monthly residuals.
Yeah.
How did that, how did that kind of change your thinking, or did that let you start to dream a little bit about what this could look like if you built a longer term career in it?
Right. Well, and even to back up a little bit, for anyone who's ever started in a sales role, especially these type, the first thing it's told you is go see your sphere of influence, right? Go see your circle of influence. Remember, we lived at the time in Des Moines, Iowa, and grew up in very close knit family with family friends, family groups, all stuff like that. For the last 3 years, my dad had pillaged that whole group. So I didn't have this sphere of influence suddenly be like, oh, go pick off all the easy ones and get some. So I really had to jump into it, cold calling.
Okay.
And so what really helped me see through it and to speak to your question was seeing what my dad had done and seeing what others had done. I was fortunate that I very quickly got to go to one of the conferences soon after starting, got to see people on stage. I've never been a shy person, got to talk to people about, what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
Started finding people that were similar to me and realizing like, okay, my dad might do it a different way than me, or Joe might do it a different way than me, but you're like me, and okay, I resonate with that more. I can more. So my business was really built a lot on networking and referral. In the beginning, a lot of cold calls. I had to just knocking on doors.
Yeah.
But then over time, networking, referrals, building that way. And then, it was just the focus on just a little bit at a time, month by month, growing. I can tell you to this day, my very first residual check was for 39 cents, so it was a little hard at that time to look at it and be like, man, we got her.
That's fair.
But over time, obviously, that grew.
So once you got through the 6 months of disappointing everyone that you weren't Mike Volrath, right?
Yeah.
The kind of where did it go from there? What were obviously I think you realized that you could do this.
Right.
You realized that you could probably make money doing it and have a career doing it.
Right.
Kind of where did the journey take you from there?
Yeah. So at the time I was living in Des Moines, Iowa. I was working for Heartland Payment Systems, and the entry level job you start off with there is relationship manager. That's the feet on the street salesperson. You're just responsible for yourself. It had been about 8 months after I started, I was then promoted to territory manager, which means then you're responsible for meeting your own sales quota,
right.
In addition to helping others on your team. Mm-hmm. I loved that job a lot. I enjoyed it. I get a lot of a lot of passion. I'm very passionate about helping others find their goals, helping others find their success. Sure. And so I enjoyed that a lot. I did a lot of helping close deals for people on my team. Over the next, that have been the next, 3 years, I built a team up of 8 people. And I was really proud of that. We would all hit our goals every month. That was just my thing. Like, we all had to do it. Whatever it took, I'm with you. We're going to hit it.
Right.
I was able to get mine a lot easier than some other people, so I could kind of just do mine off of networking. It was a little easier, and then I'd go help everybody else hit theirs. And so that was my territory manager role. I could tell you, April of 2012, this would have been. I was approached by a vice president who said, hey, you're up and coming in the company. I want to snatch you, become a division manager, move to Colorado at the time.
Okay.
And my wife, Nene, and I flew out there. Guy wined and dined us and said, we were like, this sounds great. This sounds awesome. The pay was great. The opportunity was amazing.
Sure.
Kind of take that next step. And I remember I accepted the job, and we were looking at houses, and Bob Carr, who was the CEO and founder of Heartland at the time,
right.
called me and said, and I didn't really know Bob that well, so it was pretty crazy to get a call from Bob, and he's like, Justin, you're not going anywhere. Like, just kind of stick where you are. We're shuffling the decks a little bit. Just hang tight.
Okay.
So that was April 2012. October 2012, we were on an incentive trip in New York City, actually, and we just got done seeing the show, and I get a call from Bob, and he says, come on up to my suite. So I go up there, and amazing opportunity from Bob at the time was, hey, you can move anywhere you want to here, not anywhere, but here's a choice of like 13 different places where we need a division manager. Where would you like to go? And that was how we ended up in Arizona. So I
Right.
accepted the job to be the Arizona division manager with Heartland. We moved down here in the end of 2012 here to Arizona. Absolutely love it. It was an amazing opportunity for me, and really did some great things while at Heartland. After Heartland was acquired by Global Payments, ended up walking away. Just wasn't the right fit at that time. And then I was part of kind of the original crew of people starting Beyond, which is the a payments company that Bob Carr is kind of his second act, so to speak. And learned a lot. Absolutely amazing opportunity for me. I was senior vice president of sales there, which means I ran all the sales for like Mississippi River West, and so learned a ton. Had a great opportunity there, and once it kind of ran its course and it was ready for like, hey, I'm ready to do this on my own.
Yeah.
In December, technically December of 2019, we launched PayCompass, and that's where we are today.
Yeah. I'll back up a little bit, because right after you made the move to Arizona is the first time we met.
Yes.
10 plus years ago, and you at the time your reputation was not only that you had certainly figured out kind of the sales part, but that you really had become one of the leaders at coaching folks. And I think some of that is, you've talked about that a little bit, is kind of caring deeply about the people who were doing the selling on your team.
Right.
Very much that kind of team mentality, right? We're going to win this thing together, and that's going to be a little bit different for each person. You could get your numbers, to your point, pretty easily, because you really had a format and kind of a system that you were using.
Yep.
But that's what, the first time I was ever introduced to you, that's the way it was introduced, is that he's really got a passion for helping other people get there too. And I think that's meaningful, because that's kind of the thread that's been through some of this, right? Is
Absolutely.
you had that success at one and you went to another, to technically even a larger role in doing that.
Yes.
Before starting your own right before COVID, which great timing, by the way.
Amazing time to start a company. Yeah, highly recommend it.
But what was kind of the catalyst of going, because obviously SVP of sales for a national sales organization, to starting what I know you've talked about was maybe going backwards to a role that you had enjoyed a little bit more.
Right.
What was your thought process when you first started PayCompass? Kind of what did you imagine that it would be initially?
Yeah, definitely not what it's become. But I mean, amazing journey for sure. But when I parted ways with Beyond, I really took a step back for a little while and said, what do I want to be when I grow up at this point? I had a lot of opportunities thrown at me. I was very blessed in that regard, and I looked at other national sales leader type roles, producer type roles, lots of different things outside of the industry, inside the industry. But I realized how much I loved the industry, and I really wanted to stay, and I felt like I could use my experience and my knowledge to help others and help grow an organization. Mm-hmm. And so what I did is I spent a lot of time trying to find an organization that I felt had all the bells and whistles that I felt we needed. And what I mean by we, I mean what agents needed, what the individual sales agents needed.
Right.
I've always been that person. I was always the guy who said, well, wait a minute, hold on. How's that going to affect the salesperson? Or this new policy, guys, do you realize how hard that is on the salesman? I've always been that person, sometimes annoyingly so, I'm sure, to many of my counterparts, but it was, I really wanted to find somewhere that had all that. And what I mean by that is, lots of product offerings, ease of boarding, contracts that protect them and their customers, the merchants. So I really searched for that, and I couldn't find somewhere. Now, that doesn't mean they're not out there by any means, but I just couldn't find anyone that I really aligned with. And I realized, like, maybe this is just the time to go do it on our own. And so, Nini and I, tried really hard to, try to, create the right, formula for this. It was insider knowledge here. It was going to be Compass Pay at first instead of PayCompass. Yeah. Which I look back on now, I don't like, but I don't know, I really loved it then, But fortunately, the URL for Compass Pay was like $30,000, and I talked the guy to had PayCompass.com down to like $3,000. I was like, well, we're PayCompass, we're going that route. So, so we launched it with really the whole concept was, I thought in the beginning what I wanted to do was create a small team of people, 25, 30 people, and just be almost like I was when I was a division manager. We're just going to crush it together. I'm going to be here to support you. I'm going to help you sell the best of the best. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to rely upon 800 numbers to support us. And I realized very quickly, like, our standard of support was much higher than what I was, able to receive from others.
Yeah.
And that, you know what, if we're going to do this and do this the way that I want to put my name on, and I want these agents to put their name behind, then I want them to be proud of and be able to talk to their family and their kids and, even their merchants about that we needed to do it all ourselves. We needed to create the support and the structure and all that. And so that's the genesis really of what launched Pay Compass today.
And I remember the first time you told me that your idea was kind of almost a division manager for hire, right?
Yeah.
That, we're going to build an all-star team and just go out and do it. So that pivot, realizing that, hey, yes, I want to help coach. I want to help create an atmosphere where salespeople can be successful, right? Certainly capturing some of what you had done in other roles at larger corporations. So pivoting to, what we are or what Pay Compass is now, where there is a lot of that in-house, right?
Right.
But in-house in kind of a startup form, walk me through kind of how did that happen, and how do you even know, like, where do you start? Who are the first folks that you hire,
Right.
and those things?
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of just trial by fire and, figuring it out for sure. I mean, it was, we jumped in the deep end. I mean, I remember, the first month, that month of January, we really launched the company January 1st officially of 2020. I had signed up 25 people by the end of January. I was like, okay, this is going way faster than I thought.
Sure,
And so
sure.
I joke around about COVID kind of being a little bit of a blessing in disguise because it slowed things down a little bit for me, which I kind of needed to catch up with. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at first I thought, okay, I'm just going to do everything. I can handle, I can, I can answer the question. I've been doing this for, many years. I can guide, I can coach. But it was the things I didn't realize, the bank account changes, the file builds for the terminals, ordering the terminals, shipping the terminals, troubleshooting the terminals, all the things that go into supporting an agent in the way that I felt an agent should be supported.
Yeah.
Where I'm not going to say, hey, go do this yourself. That was just not our style. That's not our way. The concept of agent first was born out of this thought process of, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more, but this concept of agent first, which is what really our ethos is at Pay Compass, and what I'm just passionate about to no end, was that we're going to be there to help you. Let us take the heavy lifting off of your shoulders so you can go do what you do best, which is sell and build relationships, and let us take that stuff off of your plate and make your life easier. That concept, I had to very quickly add more people. So if you take a look at the day one of Pay Compass, I was, it was me in one corner of our bedroom, and Nini, my wife, in the other corner of our bedroom. She was working out of a desk that she's held onto since I think she was like 8 years old, and so she's like this little girl's desk. She's working over there. I've got a desk I've had for many years, and we're literally working in the corner of the bedroom. Everything's fine, but now we need to take the next steps. We didn't have a lot of extra money. We didn't know what to do, so we were very fortunate at that time. Our sister-in-law Beth was wanting to get back into the career. She'd been a stay-at-home mom for many years. She was ready to get back into working, and there's nobody who cares more about helping other people than Beth. And so I was like, she'll be great. Didn't know anything about the industry, right?
Sure.
So literally, it was a desk like this. I'm sitting at one side, she's sitting at the other side, and the phone would ring, and she'd answer it, and she has no idea what they're talking about. She's like, oh yeah, no problem, just a moment, let me put you on hold. She'd put me on hold and look at me like, what the hell do I do now? Like, okay, this is what you do. So she just learned little by little, and she'd start at 8 a.m., so we had to make sure we were up and the underwear was off the floor and things were cleaned up and everybody was out of bed and ready to go before she showed up to work in a corner of our bedroom.
Sure,
Sure. And then we moved into, we thought we were big time. We moved into a spare bedroom in our house then. Like, man.
It's an upgrade.
Huge upgrade, yeah. And it was me and Nini and Beth in there. And at that time, Rob Johnson, our director of operations, had already also come on board. He was working out of his house. And then about, 6-8 months after that, it's been about a little over 2.5 years, about 2.5 years right now. we moved into our first office. So it's just kind of, the hiring and the locating of the people. Beth was somebody I've, known for 20 years, so I knew how she was wired, and that was most important to me.
Sure.
The culture of I'm here to serve others is critical at Pay Compass. It is the method, the thing has to be burned into their brain, and you can't teach. I'm not going to teach that. That has to be something that you just are wired that way.
Yeah.
I knew Beth was. I knew Rob from past experiences when I worked at Heartland. He worked at a POS dealership. I knew him, operations guy through and through. That's the kind of thing. And so that's really what, if we look at every hire, we've made at Pay Compass since then, it's been this, this fire within of how do I help others?
Yeah. Well, and being a part of the team, it's a really neat mix of people that have deep industry experience, right? A lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, have seen a lot of things, and some folks that maybe don't,
right,
but have a deep passion for helping other
right,
people,
right,
and that combination has just, it creates something that you can kind of feel in the office. Generally things work pretty smoothly, and so we're excited about a new agent coming on or an agent signing a deal or any of those things. But when stuff goes sideways, right, everybody kind of puts that hat on, and it's, hey, we're going to fix it, we're going to make it right, and we're going to do what's best for the agent, and then until we can go back to kind of the day to day. And so I think how careful you've been, how intentional you've been about hiring folks that bring that mix in has really made it a pretty special place.
Yeah, culture's first. At the end of the day, if you look at many of our hires, it's, they, like you said, there's a mixture, some have industry experience, but the cultural fit is first. It is making sure that they're going to fit in with us and are just kind of impassioned, desire to do things the right way, not the easy way, to challenge the status quo of, well, that's how they did it over there. Well, I don't care how they do it over here. That's not right. Let's do things the right way. I want everyone looking through the lens of how do we make agents' lives easier, or make them more profitable, or hopefully both. And if we do that, we're all fine. There's enough opportunities out there for all of us. There's enough money in this industry to go around. Nobody needs to get greedy or, start making things difficult. At the end of the day, I've been in their shoes. I was that guy. We could get deep into things of like, I was there when my car got repossessed in front of my kids because I didn't have enough money to pay the bill. I've been there, man. And so the spirit of a salesperson and what they're going through will always be deep in me. And where your paycheck's coming from on Friday. They don't always.
Right,
they don't know what it's going to be and how it's going to change, how it's going to shift. And so if we can create some just stability and some feeling of like, okay, these guys got my back, I can go do what I need to go do. That's a really special relationship.
Talk to me a little bit about maybe, I know you said, and I've heard you say before, that you were thinking, 20, 25, 30 people, right? In fact, I've heard you and Nini argue about how many people it was going to be, but obviously it's grown past that. Not even worth giving the number because the number is constantly changing. I think we've added more agents in the last week than any other week we've had prior. So as it's growing, right, as the party's getting bigger, so to speak, both people on the team and people selling, as agents, how has your dream kind of changed with it, and what do you imagine the future looking like for everybody that's involved?
Right. Well, I'll start with what hasn't changed, because I think that's more important to me and more important to the story of all of this, is that what hasn't changed is that we don't want this to be just about Justin and Nini. We never wanted that. This is not, there are many payments companies out there. There are many businesses out there where, hey, the owner's going to make a crap ton of money, and when this thing sells, they're going to make a boatload of money, and congratulations, awesome. And I'm not downplaying that. There's nothing wrong with that business model. That is just pure, capitalism, and I love it. But I wanted more than that. I wanted to help create wealth and success and fulfillment more than anything, whatever that looks like for you, for so many other people. A good friend of mine, Adam Spencer, who has been deeply influential on me and a huge mentor for me through this whole process. He coined the phrase that I use often, and I always have to quote him because I steal it forever. But is winning alone is not winning, and I have this vision in my mind of when the day comes that we decide to sell Pay Compass, and we cash out and make a bunch of money. Oh, awesome! It's just me and Nini sitting alone at some dinner table, clinking like, "Haha, look at us!" and our monocle and top hat, and, like that's
But you wear it most nights.
Yeah,
but
always wear my top hat, and I don't want that. I have this vision of so many people together that have had their lives impacted by this in a huge way financially, and that we can share the wealth with so many people out there. So that's what really hasn't changed for us. Now the finish line has moved a lot, so many people start in the payments industry. I'm constantly, fascinated. We talk about this. I'm a friend of mine, Elena Smith from Secure Bank Card, and I've talked about this many times. Like, it's crazy when you get into this industry, people immediately ask you, like, what's your exit strategy?
Right.
I was like, I just started the company a month ago, man. I'm not even thinking. But so many people start in this industry just with the thought process of what I'm going to do to exit it and my big exit, and so I thought at the beginning, like, well, maybe I got to have that kind of figured out. And so we had this number in our mind, like, well, when we hit that number, maybe we should start thinking, because I'd heard that number from other people.
Yeah.
And then we started realizing, like, well, wait a minute, why does that number matter so much? And we're going to be at that number very quickly because things have grown much faster than I thought. And so now it's not a number for us, but it's hey, when I stop having fun, maybe then I'll exit the company. But that's a long ways away because I'm having so much fun every day, And so, what's changed for us, in conjunction with that is just the thought process of we need to do whatever it takes to support the agents. What I thought in the beginning was going to be 800 numbers and other people that had it all figured out, because I came from the world at Heartland of tremendous customer support and super friendly people that had all the answers. And that's not in our world. That's not as easy to find, and it's not always. We have so many different products and solutions that I can't expect an outside company to be able to support our agents, because we sell to so many different solutions and products. So it's creating an in-house support team that cares deeply about taking care of the agents. It's finance, it's marketing. We even have data analytics, which seems crazy for a company of our size. But somebody who is really diving into the details and trying to uncover maybe where an agent didn't get paid right, or an agent maybe made a mistake and put 5 basis points when they meant 50 basis points, and just diving into those sort of things. But it's really trying to, for me, I'm always looking at gaps and saying, where's our gap in solutions? Where's our gap in support? And how can we close those gaps? And what we've determined is that 99% of the time we have to do it internally, because our standards are very high, and we're just we're gonna use external as long as we have to, but as soon as we can afford and justify to bring it internal, it's internal.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing. Obviously, it's a story I know, but I think it's a story that's going to resonate with other people. Some of those gaps you talked about, I think, is what we'll talk about in the next episode. Some of the opportunities and challenges and even some of the walls you've run into yourself, and that you're really hoping that we can start to some conversations around within the industry. So that's what we'll talk about next time. Justin, I appreciate it.
Always.
And thanks for listening.